I'm Will Hardy, husband, father, entrepreneur, hotelier, and filmmaker, and a man in the middle of his story. I've had wins, I've had breakdowns, I've had moments where I felt unstoppable, and moments where I didn't know if I could take one more step. And I know I'm not the only one. This podcast is a place where we tell the truth, where leaders, dreamers, husbands, wives, entrepreneurs can come clean about the real journey. Because together, we heal faster. Together, we get clearer. Together, we rise. This is an invitation to walk with me, not after it's perfect, but while it's still being written. Welcome to Interrupt. Welcome back to the Interrupt podcast, where life's interruptions can actually become invitations for you to rise higher and live healthier. My name is Will, and I am your host. Guys, if you've been following, we've already really put out what I think is some really great content. We've had some incredible speakers already join the platform. Today, however, hits a little bit more personal for me. This man that I'm going to introduce to you in just a second is become a really great friend to me. He has been active as a mentor in my life, also a life coach for the last couple of years, and I'll tell you, it's made all the difference. I'll jump right into it because his accolades kind of speak for themselves. But he has a Master of Divinity, Doctor of Ministry and Spiritual Formation. He's hyper focused on research how trauma-induced internalized shame impacts the body, emotions, relationships, works, and spirituality. I love what he says, that in his recovery, he and his wife have founded an incredible organization called the Heart Connection Seminar, where they've helped over 6,000 people across the world for the last 25 years. He spent 16 years in the International Financial Administration of Denomination. But really, what's been awesome is he's been focusing on releasing the lie of not enough and embracing inherent worth in these seminars, which I can't imagine any more powerful, demonstration than that right there. Right now, he's certified hypnotherapist. He specializes in conversational hypnotherapy, helping leaders and creators wake from trauma-driven trances to return to creative, confident, and wise choices, which is, as you can imagine, why I wanted to reach out to this gentleman. Without further ado, Dr. Paul Fitzgerald, so glad you're joining me on the Interrupt podcast today.
Well, Will, I'm so honored to be here. And I hear that resume and I think, does he know what he wants to be when he grows up? And no, I don't, I'm not sure. I'm still learning.
I tell you, I've got to watch that firsthand, and your ability to, well, first off, you're just the most, you're like the lighthouse, right? Every time I think of you, you're that calm in the storm. Every time we have a conversation, you impact me in such a great way. And obviously, this didn't happen overnight. I'm sure this comes from many, many years of your own trauma experiences and shame and things that you've had to walk out. Um, Paul, if you don't mind, I'd love to start with, you spent years in the crossroads of theology, leadership, human development. Start with your background, especially your doctrinal work of how, the whole internal shame and the induced shame process, how that not only did you help others, but how it affected you as a leader to grow even to the next level.
Well, I was kind of an overachiever out of my own dysfunction. And I wound up having a crash and burn. I spent those
Mm,
16 years in denomination administration, had my crash and burn. In the middle, in there, someplace, I pastored a church for a year. It was not a pleasant experience for me or them, and that was even added to my added to my own shame issues.
yeah.
And out of my recovery, I began to realize I was addicted to work.
Mm,
I was trying to work my way to be enough. I had lost my human being, and I'd become a human doing.
mm,
Now, not to blame my mother and father, but they were very basic people. Neither one had very much education, and they were hard workers. And so, in that kind of environment, you get a work ethic that's really important.
sure.
But I entered a lot of that work trying to overachieve to be enough, and with the crash and burn. And with my recovery process, I began to wonder what am I doing? What's creating this whole thing? Because really, you just go to a place of darkness and you wonder, trying to figure out why didn't I see this? How do I not know this?
Mm,
And I ran across a saying, a book that had this, and I can't remember much of the book, but I remember this. no one can shame you more deeply, wound you more deeply than someone from whom you expect to receive grace and love and mercy.
Wow.
Now, that makes parenting really difficult and challenging,
You better believe it.
and it makes ministry extremely risky.
Mm.
And out of that, I had some experiences. I'd always been a spiritual person, even from a young age. And out of that, I had some really mystical experiences that um, led me to make some significant changes in my life. I was headed to become the assistant director of the pensions program for that denomination. And I knew I couldn't do that,
Mm.
but I was caught in a bind. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I had a charter life underwriter credential. I had a charter financial credential. I had the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I remember I was driving one night in the dark to a class, and I was going to get a business administration degree on top of everything else
Mm.
because I needed to be enough.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I am so tired. I'm so exhausted. And I just really want to go home, be with my family.
Yeah.
And there was this knowing, I call it a voice, that said, you can do that. It's not a problem. You're enough.
Mm.
I was like, wow, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And I realized that it was contradicting the lie that I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't know what I'm doing. My work addiction was really out of my imposter syndrome.
Mm.
So I had to be more than enough to be enough.
Wow.
And I've used it with you. It's a metaphor I've used a lot. It's like at a dog race. You got these dogs that are trained to run and excel.
Mm.
They're the top form, and they're chasing a rabbit that's fake, and they can't even catch it.
Wow.
And I was doing exactly that thing.
Mm. I've been
And
there.
it was one of those dark moments that was the precursor to light. I've said a long time ago, I've said it many, many times in my seminar, no one makes significant core changes until it's more painful being where you are than in changing.
Mm.
And I believe the Holy Spirit works through our pain too.
Yes.
Waking up is hard to do, but without it, we just keep doing the same old thing. We don't see the options we have.
Wow. So Paul,
So,
it's fascinating. So how old were you when you kind of had this transition, this revelation in your life?
well, it was about 40 years ago now. I'm 70, going to be 78 years old in a few
Okay, so
days.
you're about
Yeah,
38, kind of
so
that what they call that
yeah,
kind of
mid,
that midlife
mid,
crisis moment, right? It's so
yeah,
interesting because
yeah,
I faced that personally myself, where I talk about this on the website and in the podcast. Is this I would it felt like a divine interruption. It felt like something that needed to change, something that was being called out of me. Quite frankly, just like you said, I was tired. I was tired of
right,
chasing this rabbit. We've had these conversations in my personal talks with you that as a little boy I would sit out there for hours and shoot free throw after free throw after free throw, and I couldn't even come in to eat dinner in my mind. Nobody put that on me but myself,
right,
intentionally. But I would sit there for hours and hours and hours, and it had to be perfect. And if I didn't hit 25 in a row, I couldn't come in for dinner. And I'd sit out there some nights till I was just literally in tears, right? Couldn't even hardly pick up a basketball, but yet something was still driving me to perform you know
yeah,
and Paul, that's it brings emotions out just even saying that again. But it's men are dealing with this, and not just men. This is not just for men, this is for women as well. There are people all over the world that are dealing with this, as you call it, this imposter syndrome, right? this
right,
this this kind of false identity that, why do we have such a hard time being, and we're great at doing, right? And Gabor Mate really hit this. Like Brene Brown was kind of one of the first voices to
yes,
come out with shame and what the transparency and authenticity. And then Gabor Mate talks about his version of his workaholic nature.
sure,
But why is it that for most of it, it's so easy for us to want to perform, right? We want to put a mask on, we want to perform, and we want to get out there, and we want to do. We just are not so good at being, or at least I'm not. And I think, to your testimony as well. But have you seen this all over with the leaders that you've developed?
absolutely. It's endemic. It's everywhere. But think about school. Think about the process of school. we're rewarded for doing, not
Mm,
being.
so good.
Uh, the grades are about performing.
Yeah.
Everything. You look at read the marketing books, read the business books, look at the who the heroes of the business world. They're about doing.
Mm,
25 ways you can improve this. 25 things you can do this. Here's my secret formula to do this.
that's right.
Not much is about being. And I'm going to stick my neck out here a little bit because I don't know your audience exactly, but what I find is that in the church world, we have interpreted Jesus as a moral teacher, which makes it about doing right, when in fact he was a wisdom teacher about being.
That's right.
When you have the being and the wisdom, then the doing will come, but the doing will never get you to the wisdom.
Mm, that's so powerful. So when when you're sitting there, how do you walk? Well, first off, let's talk about this shame comment for a second, right? Shame. It's almost like a curse word, right? We as men, we're not talking about this enough. A lot
Right.
of the shame that we carry, the responsibility, the weight that we carry, and I don't even want to be sexist towards this. I mean, women carry just as much weight on a different side, right? Like, and maybe both sides,
Absolutely.
especially if you're a single
Absolutely.
mother or you're trying to raise children alone. I mean, I can't imagine being in that position. But this shame thing is it's a real piece. And why is it? Why do men and women? Why do we have to come to an absolute burnout before we finally go? Something needs to change.
Well, an interesting thing, and we used to hear a lot about, well, the Eastern world is about shame, the Oriental world, Eastern world. The Western world is about guilt.
Mm,
Um, I believe that we are born with an innate affect of shame. We're not born with an innate awareness of guilt. To be guilty, to feel guilty, you have to have some kind of standard against which you violated.
mm,
But shame, you see it in babies, for example. One of my mentors did a lot of research around shame in infants. If you have a child that is excited about something, a rattle or some kind of color, and you jerk it away from them, what you'll often see is either anger, they'll get mad at you, or they will go like this. They'll turn inward and turn down. That's the innate act of shame. So it's like I want something and it's partially withdrawn from me. If it's completely withdrawn, I'll get angry.
hmm
But if I still hope for it, but I have a diminished sense of it, it feels like a sense of powerlessness.
mm.
Powerlessness is an absolute feeling we hate, but it is a form of shame. The other thing that we learn really early on that is related to shame is the words we use like should.
hmm
Anytime you use the word should, shame is lurking someplace. You should because of what standard?
Yeah.
Who? Or have to? Or you must? Or you ought to? All of those words rob us of sense of agency. I'm not making the choice, I'm conforming to a choice. And I either do it well or I fall short.
Mm,
And if I change those words, I tell people you can improve your life 20% at least by changing from I have to, I should, I must, I ought to say I can, I
yeah.
want to,
Yeah.
I look forward to, I love the fact that I can. Changes everything because you're claiming your agency as opposed to meeting the standards. And we start getting should at home. We start getting should at school. Expectations are high.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a lot of soapbox preaching around the issue of expectations. And people look at me like, well, you got to have expectations. That's what the culture tells us.
Sure.
But expectations are always a disappointment waiting to happen.
Wow.
I've never met the person who met all their expectations on any given day and at 3 o'clock said, I've done it. Let's have a party. No, it's like, oh, I should have set my expectations higher. That was should.
hmm
should is a power, or expectations are power struggles. Either somebody else has power, meaning you should do this, or I tell myself I should do it. So it's a force. And so I suggest people change their language again
Yeah,
from expectations to aspirations. Aspirations, you can get half of your aspiration done and you're on the way.
that's right.
If you get half of an expectation done, you're an absolute failure.
Yeah, yeah. But you know
How
what?
we
But
talk to ourselves.
that's so difficult for the performer, right? That's so difficult for someone like myself who, I'm constantly pushing out the goal
Yes.
line, right? I get to one. I think I don't know if I ever told you this story. My wife and I, we were having a fun dinner with our friends one night, and somebody brought up this idea that we pick a song, right? Pick a song that would kind of remind you of who you are. If you had to pick one song that kind of framed up who you are as a person, what would that song be? And it came down to me, and I mean, I couldn't think. I was like, I don't know, I don't know. My wife immediately goes, "Well, I know your song." I'm like, "Okay, all right, please tell me what that song is." And she goes, "Never Enough," on The Greatest Showman. And I thought,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh!" It didn't
Yeah.
feel like it wasn't like she was, being negative towards me. It was just that she
No.
knows me better than anybody, you know?
Right.
And we've had these conversations, and it's, the power of your words are so important, Paul. And it's exactly what you said. And we work on this a lot. But as a man thinks, so is he, right? As a woman
Exactly.
thinks, so is she. There's a place to where, even in this podcast and the understanding of it, these interruptions that happen in our life, and I'm sure we'll talk about your interruptions here in a minute, because I want to get your version of when you say when basically you went through recovery, right? Out of recovery into this new vision of what your life would look like. But there's this place to where, if we're not careful when those interruptions come, if we don't keep the right mental attitude, if we don't keep the right words, if we don't keep the right posture,
Right.
it can really take
Right.
us out in a really negative way. Right. But I
Yes.
believe that
Yes.
where there's, where all these kind of negative things can expose, um, I believe it's only exposing to bring us higher, right? It's only exposing
Exactly.
to get us off of the wheel, right? The where the rat's running on the wheel, to get us off that, to free us up, to become more able to become human beings and not just human doings, right?
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. The other key piece with words, again, words is so important
Sure.
as far as expectations and aspirations. Expectations are based on need. I need to do this.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to have the want to do it, but the need to do it means I have to force myself to do it. I have to keep motivating myself to do it. I have to keep pushing myself to do it. I have to keep measuring myself
Mm.
against what I've been. There's a great book. I can't remember the author's name. The Gap in the Grain, Gap in the Gain. The thesis of the book basically is that we have this gap between where we are and our expectations, but we forget the gain we've had to get there.
Mm.
And without the balance, every new gain is becomes an old hat. It's like you want a new car. Okay, you save for the car, you look for the car, you search for the car. It's fantastic. I got this car. Tomorrow it's a used car.
That's right.
It's past. It's over.
Depreciates 20% as soon as you drive it off the lot.
And it's like, oh yeah, first scratch. Okay, well I got a car. It's okay. No big deal. This thing I wanted so badly, I got it, and now it's just rather than gratitude. Gratitude is a superpower as an antidote
Mm.
to the trap of needing more,
Yeah.
running more, doing more.
So good. How do we get that gratitude, right? Like, I mean, I've got a thousand things going on in my head, but I mean, there are listeners all over that are listening to this podcast, and I'm assuming they're a high end entrepreneur. They're somewhere in the messy middle, probably, of their life. They're 30s to 40s to 50s and older, that are, gone. I've got a little money in the bank, but I just can't seem to be fully content. I can't seem to be, fully happy or arrived. This expectation thing is really tough, man, because I'm like you. When I set an expectation in my head, it's almost like if it doesn't happen, it's detrimental. right? Like it brings such a level of disappointment for me. Now I get goal setting, I get purpose, I get,
Right.
being passionate, but it's what you just said right there. You can want something but not need it. That is the hardest cross pollination for me, right? Because I believe there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there right now that are wanting, right? I mean, not wanting, but needing, right? I need to provide. I need to excel. I need to climb the corporate ladder. I need to win. I need to outdo, my family or my friend or whatever. Like this, I have to do this as a man. I need this, right? And you're going. Not only is that toxic, but that level of expectation can really deflate you, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're on again, off again. Your emotions are up and down. Um, it's that feeling, deep feeling. It's a deep wound of I'm not enough without this.
Gosh, man. So you guys, if you get a chance, I'll show you how to connect with Dr. Paul when we get off here. That has been one of the greatest helps that you've given me, right? And it's exactly what you said. I mean, it's some of this is nature, nurture, choice, right? The way we live our life, and what I'm really trying to debunk a lot in this podcast is the Instagrammable version of us, right? This
Exactly.
idea
Yeah.
that the world only sees that side, that version. And I can't tell you how many times people have come up to me and gone, "Man, Will, everything you touch turns to gold." Right. Or
Yeah.
God, if I just had
Yeah.
your life, or if I just had your marriage, or if I just had,
Yeah.
this or that business, and I just want to go like, you don't get it. Like
Right.
the grass is not greener on the other side. I do feel like I'm fully blessed and grateful, but a lot of that came from the very tools you're talking about is understanding that I had to finally realize, I had to finally sit with the fact in that dark place that goes, Will, why is it never enough? Number one. Two, who are you trying to prove yourself to?
Yeah.
And three, why are you so afraid?
Yeah. You know, one of the things I've worked with a lot of people. Two of the core things that I find themes with all people. One is we have a failure to accept reality.
Hmm.
And the moment we resist reality and we don't want to accept the reality, we will suffer.
Wow.
And accepting reality can sound like, well, just giving in passive.
Hmm.
But until you can accept reality as it is, you can't be creative in responding to it
Hmm.
because you're responding to an illusion of what you want it to be.
So just real quick, Paul, are you kind of saying like, unless you bring it to the light, basically, like whatever the issue is,
Exactly.
whatever the fear is, whatever the addiction is, whatever the insecurity is, like you're saying, until you acknowledge it and bring it to the light, is that what I hear you saying?
Exactly.
Okay,
Which is why most of us have to have a crisis.
because we don't want to bring it to the light.
We're terrified to bring it to light.
Is is,
Exactly.
is that is that is that masked behind ego? Is that masked behind pride? What's the driving force that doesn't want? We don't want to be exposed, man, do we? We just we, we don't like this word
We
expose.
we grow up learning how to be posers.
Yeah,
Posing is natural to us. It's a survival skill for many of us.
survival,
Whether
100%.
it's in school or whether it's in a family of origin or whether it's in church.
Yeah,
Church is a great way to learn to pose. I mean, I'm a minister by background, so I'm not knocking spirituality, but I am saying that the churches I grew up in, there was a lot of posing.
mm,
Vulnerability was not a high priority.
yeah,
In fact, you got too vulnerable, people worried about you.
sure,
Let's go back to measuring. What's the dimensions of the ark? Let's go back to doing that stuff
exactly.
because it was about doing, and we were measured by our doing. How well are you doing? How are you coming to church? Are you doing this? Is you doing this right, that wrong? Are you tithing? Are you tithing the gross or the net? All that doing stuff, but very little about being.
Yeah,
And the message of Jesus was all about being and very little about doing, really.
yeah,
But we kind of distorted that message.
sure.
I learned this a long time ago. I think this applies here. when I worked with, I created a 12-step group in a mega church for about 6 years
Okay.
out of my own recovery, trying to share what I was learning.
Yeah.
And some of my good 12-step friends taught me numerous lessons. But one of the lessons was never get between a person and their drug of choice.
Mm.
Because if you do, they'll go through you to get it.
Wow.
What I learned is the same thing is true with illusions. When you get between somebody and their illusion, they will go through you to get it because the illusion is so powerful. It's their dopamine.
Wow.
I have to have it or I'm not enough.
Wow.
And breaking illusions is hard. It takes usually a crisis.
So an
When
illusion.
I work when I work with people, I look for three things. I look for somebody who says, and they're at what I call threshold. They know something's got to change.
Mm.
Second, they said, I want it to change now. And third, it's me, not my circumstances, not my wife, not my situation. It's me.
Yeah.
I've got to change because how I'm seeing things is distorting reality.
Wow. And part of that illusion that you're talking about really goes back to that the want versus need, right? Like you said, there's a healthy thing. Like I want I want to be a great provider for my family, right? I want to
Right.
accomplish these great
Right.
accolades in my life. I want to be a good friend. I want to be
Right.
a great leader. I mean, those are all great things to want. Um,
Absolutely.
but to need those, right? That's
Yes.
where
Right.
that illusion is built from what I'm hearing you
Exactly.
say, right? And then when you build that
Exactly.
illusion, you're basically saying that's just so powerful of an addiction, then that is the drug of choice, right?
It is a drug of choice. And let me put another word in here. It's also a trance.
Oh, wow.
I've worked with a lot of trauma issues around the years, and we can read a lot about trauma. There's a lot of distortion and conversation around trauma.
Sure.
What I've come to realize is that trauma creates trance, in that it narrows people's perception of choices down to one or two choices, so they become predictable. For example, you probably know in your life people who and behind their back, people are saying, "Oh, don't tell them that because they'll react this way.
Mm-hmm.
They'll blow up.
Mm-hmm.
They'll they'll fall apart.
Yeah.
Whatever." It's like their behavior is so consistent. It's like predictable,
Yeah.
and that's what a trance is. If I had you and I had you in a trance and I could make you quack like a duck when I told you to, you wouldn't see any other option to not do that.
Yeah.
The same thing is true with trauma, rage, procrastination, perfectionism, you name it.
Yeah.
It's a triggered response that got started a long time ago in reaction to a painful situation.
Mm.
And when it's triggered today, we're triggered back to that same reaction and almost back to the same cognitive skills we had at the time of that reaction.
Wow.
So we go back to the reaction, and we almost have a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old inside of us making the choices for us.
Sure.
So we're taking, because if you ever had somebody who triggered in a rage or perfectionism or some kind of meltdown, try to talk them out of it.
Oh, yeah. You
You
can't.
can't, because they can't see any other option,
Sure.
and it's totally consistent with them.
Yep.
Therapy of any kind, what if you call it therapy or not? Therapy is always helping people to see the options they have so they can have agency and make choices as opposed to responding out of a trance.
Wow. We talk about that the family trauma element, right? Again, first off, just imagine that. Like we've had these conversations a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I share these with my friends, and this is why I want this podcast to come out because, again, it's never quite as beautiful on the outside is what it looks like, right? There's real issues here that we're still walking out each and every day. And I don't it's like on Shrek and Shrek and Donkey and Shrek where he talks about
Yeah.
peeling the layer of onion, right? Like it's one layer at a time. But man, the older I
Yeah.
get, the more that I realize that. I mean, I've done every I feel like I've went through kind of every self-help process that you can, from spirituality to mind over matter to
Right.
laws of attraction to the power of positive thinking, to
Right.
deep healing of therapy, right? And you talk about a language like heal the little boy inside of you, right?
Right.
Nobody was talking about this. I mean, if you were like, growing up where I grew up and the way you grew up, Paul, I mean, it's like if you thought about talking about therapy to a man, where you
Right.
had to show weakness, right? I mean, that's
Right.
what you heard. You heard, well, that's a weak individual, right?
Right.
Uh, but let's be honest, right? Like that's the very thing that we need to become the honest, strongest, healthiest version of ourselves. So,
Yes.
so, so when you went through that trauma, that recovery process you were talking about, how did that how did the layers of shame break off of you? How did the layers of this place that, for example, this work addiction, I'm sure some of that came from your childhood, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
words that
Yeah.
were maybe words that were spoken over you that you're never going to be enough, or you're never going to amount to enough, or you're never going to be able to, or you can't do that, Paul. You're not talented or smart enough to do that, Paul, right? These are all the things that happen that trigger us. And now at 47 years of age, if I'm not careful, that little 7-year-old Will shows up in conversations. You know?
Yes. Yes.
How do we get out of that, man?
Well, it's challenging because it's subtle. Um, there's almost a false belief that if I could just go back and remember exactly where my trauma happened, then I would be free of it.
Yeah.
It's not that easy.
No.
We try to figure it out. It's an inside job, not a logical job. That's what makes it so difficult. A little bit of my story. My mother and father were 40 and 50 when I was born. They all had teenagers that were basically grown by then.
Hmm.
And I was a late in life child, obviously. So in the rural South, my mother at that age was kind of embarrassed, I think, to have me at that age because they
Hmm.
should know better. And so to overcome some of her shame, what would you name a boy that was late in life? I bet this boy is a gift from God. How about Paul? No pressure there.
Yep. Yep.
And so suddenly, my mother needed me to be a minister.
Mm.
Now, the confusing part was I believe God called me to be in ministry, different kinds of ministry, which made it, if, it would have been easier if it was not at all, you know. But I was unconsciously trying to live up to honor my mother. I
Yeah.
mean, she never said it to me, but I caught it. As children, we catch things. We catch expectations that are never told to us.
Wow.
Most of our self-limiting beliefs are implanted before we're age 7 to 9 years old.
Mm.
Because until then, we don't have critical thinking skills. Christmas mornings is coming. We have kids who are parents who are listening. The kids are young, under those ages. They'll come up Sunday morning or Christmas morning, and they'll see the cookies are gone, the milk is gone, and they believe Santa Claus was there.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of belief and conviction that kids have when you tell them you're stupid or you better do this. Nobody's going to be around. Who's going to like you if you act that way?
Man.
You're not making God happy by not picking up after yourself. All those messages get planted as truth.
Yeah. Jeez.
I have a friend who says it this way, in a lot of different settings. He says, so if what you thought was true wasn't true, when would you want to know it, now or later?
I want it now.
And waking up to it, something has to not work
Yeah.
for it to come to our awareness. As long as it works, as long as we can force it to work and make it work, we do it.
Well, you notice how I said that about me because I'm still the performer, right? I want to fix this. I want to fix it as soon as possible, you know. But I will tell you this, Paul, that has come from me making tremendous, and I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back, but I've made tremendous vulnerable choices for many
Right,
years to know yourself to lead yourself.
right.
Growing up where the hiding the pink elephant in the room is so prominent in families and experiences. I know I experienced that as a child in family heritage. You've experienced that, and I don't know of too many people that really haven't. Right?
Yeah,
Um,
right.
and I just refused. My wife and I just refused to live that life. I wanted
Right.
yeah, I wanted everything to be exposed. And by the way, that's another I feel like a lie that we have to debunk, right? Exposing is not a bad thing, right? It's
Right.
it's it's
Yeah,
not a bad thing. It's as if again, if you knew that you had a sickness and you needed a medication to, prolong your life, you would want to know that,
sure,
right? It's like you would
sure.
want the earliest stages of any sickness so that you could recover through medication or medicine or therapy or whatever it is. We don't, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. But the bottom line
Exactly.
is the dysfunction that we're seeing in society, the dysfunction we're seeing in families all across the world, where we're just not even talking about it. We're not even talking about, the recovery. We're not talking about the healing. We're not talking about uh I mean, listen, I sit in a lot of family functions, and we don't even really ask each other how our lives are going. I mean, it's kind of like, do we even want to know? You know? And that just blows my mind. And is there a social media element to that we feel like we know people now because we get to see their life on social media and it disengages us,
Yeah,
or what is that?
yeah. I think there's a social media, the Instagram family, the Facebook family, so forth. It's it's a cultural norm. It's a cultural value.
Yeah.
To be the strong person. Uh, to not be. The other day, I was engaging somebody. We were talking about this issue of vulnerability, and I
Mhm.
said, "Now think about Jesus walking around with 12 guys, day in day out, walking around. How intimate would that be? think about 12 of your friends, guys walking around
Wow.
day and day. What would you not know about each other after after a month of walking
Absolutely.
around like that?
If we didn't kill each other.
It was,
you know.
yeah, exactly. But we live in isolated cocoons now, and we're tribal.
Yeah.
Again, I hate to use the church world, but church worlds are tribal. Families are tribal.
Yeah.
Blood's thicker than water. We don't tell anybody outside the family. There are three rules if you grow up with these three rules in a family, they will create a dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
And the more the rules are in place, the more dysfunctional the family is. And we learn them not by being taught them, but by catching them. First rule is don't don't tell anybody anything outside this family.
Mhm. Mm.
Nobody needs to know anything. And we don't talk about it in the family either. Don't talk about it. Sometimes it's if you talk about it, you get a look that says "shut up." If
Yeah.
you keep talking about it, you get a smack or sent to your room. Sometimes it's enforced this way: you can talk about it, but I'm going to tell you what you're thinking is not true. I'm going to gaslight you.
Mm.
No, that's not Dad's anger. That's righteous indignation. That's an
Wow.
extreme example, but when it's mislabeled as a kid, then you begin to doubt your own perceptions,
Mm.
and you begin to borrow perceptions from other people. What do they think? How should I please them? So don't talk about it, and don't feel what you shouldn't feel. How dare you feel that way? After all we've done for you, how could you possibly feel that way?
Yeah.
My goodness. Good boys don't feel that way, and good girls don't feel that way.
Yeah.
If you're going to get ahead in this world, you can't feel that way.
Yeah.
And don't let anybody outside the family know about dad's anger, raging, mother's, whatever. Don't tell anybody. Because if you tell anybody, you're a traitor,
Yeah.
and traitors get kicked out.
Yeah.
abandoned, which is one of the greatest fears a child has, to be abandoned.
To be abandoned.
And so we learn to conform. But those rules don't go away when we become adults.
Oh.
We begin to, like, I talk about little invisible antennas that pick up on sounds, pick up on uh, uh, how fast the car drives in the driveway. Do I want to be on the other side of the door, or do I want to hide for a while?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they become life-saving intuitions.
Yeah.
And we take them into our adult life and we use them with other people. Are they talking too loud? Are they what do they need? How should I please them? How should I help them? How do I keep their approval in place? And it's part of being human, I think.
Mm.
Part of being human in our culture, in our society.
Sure. Yeah.
Don't talk, don't feel, don't. And again, I'm going to pick on the church world I grew up in.
Sure.
Those were the rules.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
But
You didn't have new ideas. If you have new ideas outside the box, you're in trouble.
I see this
Don't be,
being
don't,
I see this being played out all over the world in
exactly.
all kinds of different sectors, right? And
Right.
how many
Yeah.
leaders have you set under that don't want they can't first off they can't say I'm sorry, right? They can't take
Right.
any level of responsibility for the lack of production that's
Right.
going on with the company or the
Right.
corporation. And I'm not labeling everybody, but I'm just saying I
Right.
know I've seen that personally, right? And
Yes.
it's this whole
Yeah.
idea that you can't feel a certain way, you can't be vulnerable, you can't be transparent,
Right.
you can't acknowledge I don't even know what the hell I'm doing right now, right? I mean,
Yes.
whatever happened to the day to where we just go like again as a child, right? I believe that and you know this about me, but I grew up and I was what I would consider before people were talking about ADD or dyslexia, right? But I was very much
Right.
of a side of my brain that was I was a dreamer. I sat in the back of the room and I kind of
Sure.
looked off and one of the biggest reasons I believe I started that or programmed that is because of two things. One, getting shut down with questions, right?
Yes. Yes.
And or two, making a vulnerable ask in the classroom and being made fun
Right.
of, right? Well,
Right.
all it takes is about one or two or three of those experiences, and you go, I get how this game works. I'm going to keep my mouth
Yes.
shut. I'm going to hide in the back, and if
Yeah.
anything, just hopefully they don't call upon my name, right?
Yes. Right.
And it's you perform, and it just it breaks my heart, especially when you see this, and this is in the world that I travel in, in the film space, and high end real
Uh-huh.
estate and entrepreneur world. There's nothing more kind of disgusting when you walk into a room of what are considered great leaders and everybody's still lobbying for position, right? Everybody is still lobbying for a pat on the back. Everybody's still lobbying for approval and, tell me I'm
Yeah.
enough and, show me, look, and look how big my house is. Look how many cars I have. Look how many watches I have.
Yeah.
Look at my beautiful
Yeah.
wife or girlfriend. It's like, but it really is what you said. It's that trauma that really takes us back to those childhood experiences, and before we know it, we're walking around in an old man's body, again, manifesting like an 8-year-old child, right?
And here's a couple of pieces. Um, Nobody wants to be a victim.
Mm,
Victim Being a victim is not good.
that's right.
We live in an environment where we live in an entitlement environment. The more you feel entitled, the riskier victimization is for you.
Ooh, let's talk about that one.
The more entitled you feel, when you're triggered into victimization, it's horrific.
Mm,
We live in a world where self-esteem is so out of proportion. Self-esteem is absolutely critical. But we live in a world right now where self-esteem is so promoted with the absence of self-compassion.
yeah,
I use this metaphor. When you have self-esteem, you want to be enough.
yeah,
You're like it's going to be based on some kind of external factor. I'm smart enough, my achievements, my money, my looks, something external to me
yeah,
makes me enough.
yeah.
But all those are at risk. We can lose any of them.
That's right.
And so it's like a tight wire walker at a circus. You're focused on that one thing. That my whole self-esteem depends on staying on this wire, because there's no net below me. If I fall, I'm going to fall flat.
Mm.
Self-compassion is the net below us that allows us to fall and fall flat.
Wow.
I'm 78. I'm going to be 78 years old in a few days. I don't look like I did when I was 24. You know, I have all the physical limitations of a 78-year-old guy.
You still look great, Paul.
But you know, and I appreciate that. But if I was still trying to be 24 or 48 even,
Yeah.
and I had to be that and to be enough,
Yeah.
then I got my shirt's open, I got a gold chain, and I got a new sports car, and I just traded my wife for another wife
Sure.
because I got to be enough.
Yeah.
Because I have no self-compassion for my limitations.
Yeah.
And limitations happen. I had there's an old story. I heard a psychiatrist say this. He had a client who had dreams, and he asked her, he said, "Do you ever dream of falling?" She said, "Well, yeah, all the time." He said, "Well, do you ever let yourself fall?" And she says, "Well, no, I'm not gonna let myself fall." He said, next time it happens, just let yourself fall." She
Mm.
came back in later. She said, "I did it. I let myself fall." He said, "What happened?" "I bounced.
Wow.
I bounced."
Yeah.
The illusion that I'm going to die,
Mm-hmm.
the illusion that I'm not good enough. If I don't do this, I'm going to be totally humiliated.
Yeah.
You see, it's a belief we have. It's not. It's not just trauma creates a belief.
Yeah.
A belief that if I don't do this, I'm going to be. It's like black and white thinking. I'm going to die. I'm going to be humiliated.
Sure.
I can't show my face.
Yeah.
Which let me tag on to that. You know, often people talk about people who had suicide as losing control. I look at it differently. Taking your own life is ultimate control. It doesn't change any circumstances that I'm going to be humiliated over,
Mm-hmm.
but I won't be there to see it. I won't be there to be seen.
Yeah.
I do not want to be seen that vulnerable and that humiliated.
Yeah. You know, part of
Uh,
one of the big things we've talked about, Paul, and it's again, this is where I've come at 47 years of age, right? And have tried to do a lot of work. And that is, I realized I came to this great revelation that I have a very hard time being childlike. I have a very hard time just enjoying the moment, right? You just got this big accomplishment done. Stop for a second, get out a bottle of champagne, rest your mind for 2 minutes, and just celebrate.
yeah,
And for me, that'll last about 30 seconds. And I've already got my mind on the next piece, right? And I know that stems from, again, some of that performance, some of
uh,
that, approval, that addiction to approval. But the sadder part for me is the ability to, like, whoever told us that, failing is failing, right? Like, you trying something is failing. It's like, you remember that being there as a little boy, and you had the Lincoln
yes,
Logs, or you had the train
yeah,
track that you were building or whatever, and the train wouldn't stay on, it would fly off, and you'd try it again, it would fly off, and you were never discouraged by that, right? You just, something in your mind said, hey, it's got to be adjusted, it's got to be fixed. I feel like as a society we put so much pressure on ourselves now, right, based on this performance, that we can't even enjoy creativity anymore, um, because again, it's like even building this podcast. I'll just be real vulnerable with you, right? Like building this podcast, there's things that I've done in my life that I've been able to what I feel like control some form of that success and what it looks like. Well, this is completely
sure,
different, right? This is me for the first time ever going, I'm willing to expose myself to the world in a whole different way and really bring out the conversations that I desire for my life, right? And
right,
I could be fully rejected, I could be fully laughed at, I could be whatever. But at the first time in 47 years, I'm like, you know what? I want to be kid-like about it. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But most of the businesses that I've grown and built, I didn't know what the hell I was doing either. you know? And it was just one step at a time. So how do we get to this place to where, again, going back to heal that little boy, there was something inside of you when you had this crossroad experience where you were tired of
Mhm.
playing the game, right? You were tired of chasing the fake rabbit, as you called it. And you said, I want
Right,
my life to matter for something more, right? Um,
right.
Tell me a little bit about that season and then, of course, how that opened up into heart connection for you and your wife.
Well, I had the blessing of someone helping me distinguish and 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 have self-compassion to distinguish my sense of inadequacy from something in me that felt inadequate.
Mm.
There's a huge,
There you
there's
go,
a
right
huge
there. That's shifting words again, right?
that's shifting words. By the way,
This
I
is
want to go back
important.
to I want to go back to what you said a minute ago. Uh, Earlier in our together meeting, I would have heard you say, "I need to do this podcast," but I heard you say, "I want to do this podcast."
Yeah, that's right.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah, that's right.
But we often hear, well, I ask people, do you have an inner critic? Well, yeah, I've got an inner critic. I got a bunch of them.
Sure. They're talking all the
And we want
time.
to get rid of it. We want to kill it. You read the books, you got to kill it. You got to get rid of it. You got to stamp on it. Opposite, not true at all. Whenever we're all born with life forwarding energy. It's innate in us. Call it the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. It's innate in us.
Mhm.
Children at 3 start saying, why? Children at 4 start saying, I can do it. And now my little 6-year-old grandson says, I can do it myself, pop. And that life forwarding energy hits a barrier, a block.
Mm,
And that wound is there, but a protector's developed. A protector that wants that part of me to never be wounded like that again.
that's it.
And so the part that is protecting me begins to show up when I don't or I can't. So rather than saying, I'm anxious, I'm scared, I've got to be enough. If I don't do this, I'm gonna be humiliated.
Hmm.
Well, that means that feeling is as big as I am or bigger. It runs the show.
Yeah.
I'm in the passenger in the backseat of the car. It's driving, and when it messes up, it disappears, and I look like I'm the fool. But when I can shift my language, and say, okay, something in me feels like that. Something in me is scared.
Mm,
Something in me needs this. Something in me is terrible. Something in me is just it wants to pose, wants to pretend. Something in me is terrified of being vulnerable.
yeah.
It's trying to protect me from another hurt.
Mm,
And when I can say something in me, then I'm different than it. I'm bigger than it, and I can begin to have an inner relationship with it,
yeah.
an inner awareness of a part of me that still thinks I'm still 7 years old,
Wow.
still thinks I'm out shooting baskets, still thinks I'm trying to prove something,
It's so good.
and I can and it can begin to learn that hey, I'm adult now.
Yeah.
Here's a story I use to illustrate this.
Real quick, Paul, because this is so
Okay.
good. I don't want to leave this for a second. So, what I hear you saying is that you ultimately start parenting. You start parenting those voices going on inside of you.
Exactly.
Wow.
They want love. They want love and protection. They want you to show up in ways that somebody didn't show up for you.
Mm,
They want you to value them in ways they didn't get valued.
wow.
They want to be loved and have worth and have value
Yeah.
because then they can stop protecting you.
So,
And
so,
they've been loyal.
so, give me an example of that. Just make a story up, make a scenario up for the listeners, for the audience. If you're giving them a tool to kind of walk them through this, a voice that comes to the average entrepreneur, father, husband that doesn't feel enough, whatever it might be. What would the voice and how would the scenario play out? How would you sit with that?
Well, I wouldn't call it a voice. It's a practice of inner awareness. It's called focusing.
Okay.
There's a whole theory behind it.
Okay.
It's about well, I mean, I was focusing probably 3 or 4 years ago. I'll pull this one up. I was focusing, and I was really unaware about a turmoil inside my heart. It was about vulnerability. It's
Hmm.
about being vulnerable about something that was really challenging to be vulnerable about.
Okay.
And I was feeling a heaviness in my heart, And all of a sudden, the image came to me of a little Paul hiding behind my heart, terrified to come out. And I was just with it. And I said, okay, I get it. I understand. I understand why you were afraid to do that, because you'd be disappointing your parents, you're disappointing your mother, you're disappointing a sister who died when you were 14 years old. Or she was, yeah, you were 14, 7 years old.
Yeah.
Who kind of became my surrogate mother, all that stuff. And I said, okay, it's okay. I'm here with you. We can do this.
Mm.
And it was an internal awareness that was a God moment.
Yeah.
Let me share this. Back in college, I had a friend who was from India. His name was Abraham. One day he said to me, he said, you know, I've observed something here in the United States about children. When people ask them, where's God here in the United States? They all point like this.
Yeah.
You know, in India, my Hindu children, when I say, where's God? They all go like this.
Mm.
When we live without an intimate awareness of Christ's consciousness in us. And we've all heard sermons. If you heard sermons at all, you've heard about the still small voice. But
Sure.
you can't hear the still small voice with all these parts.
Wow.
They're screaming and yelling, trying to protect you.
Yeah.
During World War II, the Japanese thought we were going to invade across the Atlantic, or Pacific, excuse me. So they put soldiers on teeny tiny islands as early warning system.
Mm-hmm.
It was years and years and years after the war was over that they finally found the soldier out there on the last island still watching for the Americans, loyal to the nth degree. They didn't shame him and say, you're stupid. They honored him for his loyalty. They brought him back and said, hey, the war is over. He's still fighting a war that had been won and fought long ago.
Mm-hmm.
These parts within us are still fighting a battle.
Yep.
It's been over for a long time. They just don't know it. They're trying to protect us.
Yeah.
So focusing, the work I do is helping people really kind of get out of a trance,
Good.
more than putting in a trance,
Absolutely.
and helping people learn to shift that perspective from outside, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm hurt, to okay, something in me is, and how can I have a inner awareness of it so that I can befriend it.
Yep.
I know it sounds like strange language.
Listen, Paul, it trust me, it was strange to me when I first heard this, and I just said, "What are we talking about here?" Uh, but the reality is when I really started sitting down and like you said, quieting myself. Some people call it doing the work, right? But I allowed these thoughts, certain sides of our personality, right? I mean, we're made
Uh-huh.
up of a lot of things, right? And it
Yeah.
was like when I started one by one, just listening to what they're afraid of, what we're nervous of, what the anxieties were. It was like all of a sudden, I don't know. It's as if I was in the back seat of my own car, and I
Right.
decided at 47 years of age to go. I think I'm going to take over driving from here,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And just like you would any child, you look in the back seat and go, "Hey, everything's fine. I see what's coming
Yeah.
ahead. I know what's coming on. Yes, you might have been a wreck at some point in your life as a little
Yeah.
boy, but you know what? I'm driving. I'm 47 years of age. I
Yes.
understand that you might feel out of control, but we're in control and everything's going to be just
Yeah.
fine, right? And
Yeah.
and that can apply
Exactly.
for anybody. That can apply for, a 78-year-old man. It can apply for, somebody who has experienced the loss of a child, or somebody who's fighting addiction, or a business person out there that has worked their entire life and all of a sudden the company crumbles and collapses. Man,
Yeah.
all these voices are going to start talking, you know?
Yeah.
But if you can just sit there, have a different perspective, I like what you said, parent them, right? Bring some parenting to the conversation so they realize that, you know what? I don't have to quite show up in a temper tantrum anymore because I'm being
Exactly.
heard, I'm being seen, I'm being loved. And all of
Right.
a sudden, it's almost as if you build a new confidence internally with them that, okay, he's not ignoring me, right? He or she is not ignoring me.
Right.
They're listening.
Right.
And maybe if my job is done, because all I'm trying to do is protect them anyways, If they feel like they're
Yes.
already protected and everything's going to be okay, then maybe I'll sit back and I'll just get a little quieter, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. How to have an inner relationship with yourself.
Mm,
And it's a
so
mystical
good.
process. I mean, it's a mystical process. We live in a very logical, linear world.
That's right.
To paraphrase a theologian from previous years, um, you're either going to be a, you're going to have a spirituality based on mysticism, or you're not going to have a spirituality at all.
100%. Yeah.
And it's not logical, linear. We want to try to figure it out. The interesting thing is that the symptoms, people call me and we talk about symptoms of procrastination and anger and rage and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
They think that's the problem. That's just the symptom.
Yeah.
The root is problem later. I have a friend who just had a gallbladder surgery. I said, I use it all the time. I said, if you have gallstones and you don't have any pain, you're in trouble.
Mm,
If you have gallstones and you have enough pain to get medication to dull the pain, you're in trouble.
yeah.
The best situation is to have gallstones and enough pain you say, get it out of here.
That's right.
Symptoms are our body calling attention to something's not working right.
Yeah.
If we just solve the symptom, we're just putting a band-aid on it. It's called emotional bypassing or spiritual bypassing. It's not healing. It's not transformation.
Yeah.
That's a deeper work.
Absolutely, buddy. Well, what I know I desire personally, and I know you've done this as well, is, I look back and think, like you said, I'm not the guy that I was in my early 20s, and I think, thank God. And then I look back at the guy that was 35, and I'm glad I'm not that person anymore. And then I'm
Yeah,
sure when I'm 55, I hope I look back at 47 and I can appreciate all the moments, right? All the
right.
milestones and all the things that transition in my life, but we got to constantly be evolving into better versions of who we can be, and in a world that, hurt people, right? We see this. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a lot of people in this world that are in pain right now, and a
right.
lot of the reason they're in pain is because they don't feel like they can expose the truth. They don't feel like people will understand them. They feel like
And,
they'll be
and, and, you, and to use the language, something in them feels that way.
yeah, something in them feels that way, right? Which just doesn't, it
That's not
keeps.
an excuse, but that's a piece of their own. Yeah,
Yeah, 100%, right? It's all like you said. It's a lot of this is we're in a trance, right? But how many times have you done that men's group? How many times have you sit around those guys around the bonfire? How many times have women gotten together and shared? Well, hey, you think your marriage is bad? Look what's going on with me over here, right? And it's like, and I hate to say that, but it's when it comes to the light and you expose it and you humble yourself and you have these vulnerable conversations, there's real healing that can take place, and I want
yeah.
every leader out there. I want every man and every woman out there who's experienced great loss and pain and suffering to know that, number one, you're not alone. I'm sure you've seen this in your work. I love what you actually say. You say, you're not broken, you're blocked, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, and that's what we have to be telling people more and more in the world is that, listen, brother, sister, you're not broken, you're blocked, right? And there's a way to be freed from this.
And we don't have time to get into it probably, but one of the reasons I was attracted to hypnotherapy is
Yeah,
that it is very effective in what is called memory reconsolidation. Up until very, very recent days, it was assumed by everybody in this profession that trauma responses were hardwired in our brain. That's just who I am. It's who I'm always going to be.
that's right.
Now we know it's not true. There's a process that you can have the learned trauma reactions deleted and removed without having to keep going over and over them, without willpower.
Yeah.
And that's part of the work I do.
That's amazing, man. Well, I know our time's coming to end. I hate that because I mean, this is what we do, Paul. We could talk for days about this. So I definitely want to bring you back. It's an absolute honor to have you on the show, man. You've brought so much wisdom. I mean, you were speaking to me the entire time. Obviously these tools that you've been able to implement have been just powerful. And I know for the listeners out there, if they take this and they use this, I hope it's encouraging. I hope it puts a little wind in their sail. Help me land the plane. How does the listener find you, Dr. Paul?
Well, my website is www.pauldfitzgerald.com.
Okay.
There's a link in there for a free discovery session that you can hook up through Zoom, and we can talk about your situation and figure out how I can be helpful to you.
Awesome.
If you want to email me, it's just drpaul@pauldfitzgerald.com, and we can connect that way.
Well, Paul, listen, man, your work speaks for itself. You've been an absolute blessing for me. You've taught me so much, and you've helped heal so many things that I was kind of holding on to by just bringing me just these really beautiful, simple tools that I've been able to use. And that's what I also love about you is that you've taken such a complex situation and you've really dumbed it down to make it palatable. And is how I would say it. So thank you for doing that, brother. Man, thanks for
Thank
being
you.
on the Interrupt podcast. This is super exciting. I'll have some notes in there about how they can also the listener can reach back out to you. But brother, keep living and keep setting people free and keep on encouraging others. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Oh,
And we'll see you soon.
thanks, Paul.
Thank you for spending time with me today. Remember, it's not about pretending the story is finished. It's about having the courage to keep writing it, even in the middle. If this podcast has encouraged you or inspired you in any ways, please follow us at enterupwithwill.com and across all social media platforms. And please like, subscribe, and share for more. Until next time, keep showing up, keep rising, and keep choosing to enter up.